All right, very good afternoon, parents. I hope all of you can hear me. All right, and a very warm welcome to our engagement session today. All right, I'm Mr. Lau, the principal of the school. And I'd just like to set the context for our session today. In Guangyang, school home partnership is always an area which the school places emphasis on. Therefore, we have started working alongside parents, the next slide please, to support your child in preparing for the PSLE at the start of the year during our first parents briefing in January, as well as during our parent-teacher-child conference in the middle of the year. I'm sure over the course of the last 7 months, my teachers have also been communicating regularly with all of you to provide feedback on your child. Now, this session that we have today, it's really at this point of time where we are entering into the final lap of the PSLE journey. And we really hope to use this session today to highlight some areas for parents to consider, especially when it comes to selecting a secondary school for your child. Now, we would also like to share with parents on some study strategies which your child has learned in some of the workshop that we have provided in school, as well as some strategies that we have been teaching them. And we hope that parents, you at home, will also reinforce some of these strategies, all right, so that our students will inculcate some of these habits as they prepare for their PSLE. All right. Another aspect that we will be sharing with parents today is on providing parents with some handles to support the mental well-being of your child during this period. We do understand the importance of mental well-being, and especially for our P6 students at this point of time. I had the opportunity to interact with them just last week, and some of them do feedback that they're feeling stressed by the incoming prelims as well as the exams. So we hope to take the session today, all right, to share with parents some tips on how to help your child cope with some of this stress. All right, next slide, please. All right, so this is how the program outline will be. We have our year head for upper primary, Ms. Au, who will touch a little bit on PSLE to recap a bit on the scoring system, Sec 1 posting, as well as giving parents some tips on choosing a secondary school. All right. Following that, we will have our assistant year head, Mrs. Lim, all right, who will be sharing on some of the school support that we have in place for our primary 6 students, as well as coming up, what are the things for the primary 6 students as they prepare for the PSLE. This will be followed by some stress management tips by our school counselor, Ms. Shri. And then it will be, we'll leave it open. We'll end off the session with a question and answer segment. All right, and in the panel will be myself, the Vice Principal, Mr. Ho, the year heads, assistant year heads, as well as the counselors. All right, so that's the flow of today's program. So now I'll pass the time to Ms. Au to bring us through.
Once again, a very warm welcome, parents. So let me start off by sharing with you the new PSLE scoring system. Next slide, please. Now, under the new PSLE system, there are essentially 8 achievement levels, or ALs in short. Each AL will actually span a range of marks, and students with similar scores in each subject will be grouped into the same AL. So unlike the previous system, the AL for each subject will actually reflect your child's level of achievement rather than how your child has performed relative to his or her peers. So students with similar scores will be grouped into scoring bands measured with the 8 ALs. Next, please. Now, so for foundation subjects, similarly, students will also be graded. However, it is a little bit different. They are graded from AL A to C, and that is also mapped to a raw mark range as shown in the table. And in order to derive the PSLE score, it is necessary to map the AL A to C to a standard AL range, 6 to 8. So a student who scores ALA will achieve AL6 or map to AL6 according to the standard level, right? So next. Now in this slide, essentially it shows how the student's PSLE score will be computed. It is a summation of the 4 AL scores and achieved across standard and foundation level subjects. So the possible AL score can range from 4 to 32, with 4 being the best possible total score. So in this diagram, you could see that the student in this case is reflected as achieving AL 6, 5, and 6 for English, mother tongue, mathematics, and science respectively. So for a student who is taking perhaps 2 foundation or two standard subjects, they will similarly, PSLE score will be derived by adding the 4 AL scores, right, to calculate the total PSLE score for that student. Now, the PSLE is essentially a placement exam. So the 4 ALs will be added to form the PSLE score. And starting from 2021, the PSLE score will replace the T-score aggregate. So it ranges from 4 all the way to 32. And using the PSLE score, the child would actually be placed into the appropriate course in secondary school so that the student can learn at a pace suitable for him or her. What is important to take note is, in order to be promoted to the course in secondary school, the student would have to score a minimum of AL7 or better in both the English language and mathematics. So based on the PSLE score, the student could be placed in either express stroke NA option, NA or NA stroke NT option, and finally NT. Now, so for parents who are interested in finding out about the indicative score range for secondary schools, you may actually visit the MOE School Finder. So if you go to Google and you just key in School Finder, the website will pop up. So when you go to the website, you can just click on the secondary option, and the whole range of secondary schools with their indicative score range is available for parents' reference. Okay, I go on to the new S1 posting system. So this is a simple timeline of the S1 posting exercise. So we would like to suggest that before October, perhaps parents may like to begin shortlisting suitable schools using My Skills Future portal, the School Finder website, which I've mentioned earlier, and the S1 posting booklet that your child will be receiving sometime later this term, right? And then when November comes, the PSLE results will be released, and then students will have to submit their S1 option form. And in December, the school posting results will be released, and for parents and students. So how will the S1 posting work in the new system? What has remained unchanged is the PSLE score will continue to be used as the first criterion for posting. But thereafter, if there are students with the same PSLE score vying for remaining places in a school, then the schools will apply 3 tiebreakers. And the 3 tiebreakers are applied in the following order. First of all, citizenship. Under this, Singapore citizens will have priority over permanent residents, and PRs will have priority over international students. Now, thereafter, the next tiebreaker will be choice order of schools. With the new S1 posting system, the choice order of schools will now matter much more. Basically, between 2 students with the same PSLE score, the student who placed a school higher in his or her choice order will get priority. Now, this is because with the AL scoring bands, we will have more students scoring or having the same PSLE score. And in turn, schools will also be less differentiated based on cut-off points. So therefore, students will have to pay, actually students and parents will have to be very careful in terms of how they decide to place their choice order for the schools. Now, the third tiebreaker is computerized balloting. Based on simulated data, we expect that about 9 in 10 students would not have to undergo balloting. This is because balloting only kicks in after the PSLE score and after earlier tiebreakers like choice order are exhausted. So in fact, balloting will only take place for students at the margin who have the same PSLE score, same citizenship, and place the school in the same choice order. Right. So in most cases, we will not have to use the last tiebreaker, the computerized balloting. Now, next. So how do the tiebreakers work? So if we look at the example, there's only one place left in school A. Jane and Mary have both listed school A as their first choice. Because Jane has a better PSLE score than Mary, she will get the last place in school A and be posted to that school. Now, as the last place in school A has already been taken up by Jane, Mary will now be considered for her second choice of school, which is school B. So if we look at the next slide, this is where we will have to use a tiebreaker, which is choice order of school. So Brian, who has the same PSLE score as Mary of 20 points, and he has listed school B as his first choice. Now, as school B only has one place left, the tiebreaker will be applied to determine who will be successfully posted there. Since both Mary and Brian are Singapore citizens, we will therefore apply the next tiebreaker, which is the choice order of schools. So if you look at the choice order, Brian has actually ranked school B higher than Mary because he put it as his first choice. So he will be posted to school B. And because Brian has taken the last place in school B, Mary will now be considered for her next choice, which is school C. Right? Next. So what are the considerations that we should bear in mind when we think about choosing a secondary school for our child? Now, the new PSLE scoring system will be implemented this year. So under the new achievement level system, there are now only 29 possible PSLE scores, right? This is unlike the past when we have the aggregate T-score, and there are 200 over possible combinations of aggregate score. Right now, it's only narrowed to 29. And schools will also become less differentiated by cut-off points. So which means that there are actually more secondary school choices for our students now. Now, since there are more secondary school options available, what should parent and child consider when shortlisting the 6 secondary schools? Now, next. So we would like to share with you 5 steps to help you choose a secondary school with a child. So while your child's PSLE score is one consideration, it is also important to think about what are their strengths, interests, abilities, and a school environment that would actually be a good fit for their overall learning needs. Because these factors will affect how well they settle into secondary education and how much they will enjoy school over the next few years. Next. So perhaps step 1 is to really start with understanding our child. So finding out about their strength, interests, and how they like to learn. So talk to them about their favorite lessons, what they enjoy, and how they overcome challenges. Because through these conversations, you will understand where are their strengths, interests, and abilities, and the school environment that they will best thrive in. Next. So learn about what they are looking forward to in secondary school, as well as what are their possible concerns. I think it would be very helpful if we can all share stories of our secondary school days to help them see this new phase as an adventure. Listen to their concern as they may be worried about making new friends or how they can go about managing their time now that they have more subjects that they need to juggle. Right? So it would be a good transition if these conversations can take place before they start secondary school in 2022. Next. Now, what are the other important factors to consider? I think it is important to have the students to have an ownership in the preparations, shortlisting the secondary school. So what are the factors that parent and child can consider? So very importantly, school culture and environment. So what school culture and values will suit the child? Are they aligned with your family values? So most of the time, we would suggest that parents do visit the school website, the e-open house, and to get better understanding of what are the school vision, mission, and values, so that when your child goes into the school, they will be able to assimilate to the school environment more seamlessly. Besides the school culture and environment, we do also hope that parents would look at what are the programs, subjects, and CCAs that the schools are offering. So very importantly, secondary schools now, they have applied learning program, learning for life program, language elective programs. So if you understand what are your child's interests, and if your child has a particular interest in, say, robotics, then you may want to consider a school that has robotics as their ALP, right? So what CCAs would your child be interested in or looking forward to participating in? And what activities do they want to participate in? Again, nowadays, secondary schools, almost all secondary schools offer a wide array of CCAs. So, and CCAs do play a great part in a secondary school students' life. So if they can join a CCA that they enjoy in, then it will really make their secondary school life more enjoyable and also enriching. Now, location and transportation is also another important consideration because the child does have to travel to school and then back home. So what is a comfortable traveling distance for your child? And how will they be traveling to school? And what is the mode of transport that they are planning to take? Usually, we will not suggest a school that's too far away from the home because the child would have to wake up very early and it takes a longer time to get to school and vice versa. So at the end of the day, the child may end up feeling very, very tired. So definitely the location and transportation would be important factors to take into consideration. Next. Right, so after we have considered school culture and values, subjects being offered, CCA being offered, location and transportation, then I think we can start to shortlist a range of schools. So to find suitable secondary schools with your child, we really, once again, like to suggest to parents to check out School Finder or My Skills Future Student Portal, right? They are very informative and it really gives parents a good idea of what is available out there. So these are the three steps. So number one, again, take time to find out more about the possible school choices with your child. So we would like to again reiterate that it is important that the students have a sense of ownership and do shortlist a range of possible schools instead of focusing on only one school, right? So please use all the 6 secondary school options so that your child is more likely to get into a school of choice. Do not, out of the 6 options, only indicate 3, because in the worst case scenario, if the child doesn't get into any of the 3 options, it means that the child will be posted to any secondary school which he or she is eligible for and which is within reasonable distance from the home. But it may not be a school that your child will be keen on, right? So do use all the 6 options that are available, right? So lastly, do take reference from the school's indicative PSLE score range as a guide. Include 2 to 3 schools where your child's PSLE score is better than the school's cutoff points. So because right now what we have is actually an indicative cutoff points, right? So there may be mild changes or adjustment year from year. So we feel that you may want to include 2 to 3 schools where the child's PSLE score is actually better, right? Next. So here are some useful tools that to check out for parents. There is a PSLE score calculator that will help you to generate an indicative PSLE score for your child. Find out what courses and schools they may be eligible for. And definitely do visit the virtual open house when they are around the corner. Visit the open houses with your child to get a feel of the school before making a decision. Of course, do feel free to check with friends and relatives who may be in that schools so that you have a better understanding of what the school is like. All right, so thank you very much. So I'll pass the time now to Mrs. Lim, who will share with you more about the school support for the P6 students.
Hi, good afternoon, parents. I'm Mrs. Lim, the assistant year head, as well as the form teacher of 6 Loyalty. So for this segment, we'll be looking at the school support provided in preparing your child for the upcoming PSLE. So firstly, there are 2 broad categories of school support to address 2 main areas. The first one is students' cognitive needs, which includes their learning. And then we have their social emotional needs, such as helping the students to manage their emotions, expressing themselves, and establishing positive relationships. Okay, so the cognitive domain involves knowledge and the development of intellectual skills. So our focus is to develop and maximize every child's potential through our core curriculum, as well as supplementary or remedial lessons. For the students' learning, the school supports in the teaching of the core curriculum. Next. Okay, in the learning of the core subject, they develop cognitive skills, namely such as writing, reading, speaking, numeracy, and many other skills. So this lesson in school mainly helps to build their knowledge, skills, and values. So the school also provides supplementary and remedial lessons to help them prepare for PSLE, where lessons conducted are customized to their class needs. And this helps to deepen and stretch their learning, as well as to level up the mastery of the subject. Okay, so this is the lesson schedule that we have adopted for supplementary or remedial lessons, and we have begun this schedule actually since the start of the year. All right, just a recap. Okay, and a gentle reminder that in the upcoming September holiday, we will be having 2 holiday lessons on the 9th and 10th September, which is on the Thursday and Friday, from 8 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. However, the mode of delivery will have to be confirmed again because this will likely depend on the COVID situation. So, but we do hope, as far as possible, that we can conduct a face-to-face lesson. So we'll update the parents and the students when we are nearer to the dates. Yeah, so beyond just teaching academics and subject-specific knowledge, the school also fosters students' development in their relationships, their emotional skills, and overall well-being. Okay, so in our school, we place a great emphasis on students' well-being by providing a tier support system. So for all students, they go through the core curriculum such as FTGP, which is the Form Teacher Guidance Period, where they learn to manage their emotions, how to sustain friendships, and learning about the different educational pathways provided in Singapore. Also, we have the daily FT interaction time, where the form teachers will be checking in on the students daily. We do organize a study skills workshop to help students prepare for the upcoming exam, which I'll be sharing more about later. And then we have counselors coming to the class, to speak to the class individually to help them manage stress and cope with their anxiety. Of course, we also want to convey to the students that, help is always available to them. So for some students whom we observe to be struggling or have sought help from the teachers, be it from the subject teachers or the form teachers, we will be speaking to them individually to find out the issue and advise them accordingly. Sometimes we do refer these students to our school counselor for professional help. And then lastly, for the more intensive targeted support, we do have the allied educators for teaching and learning to step in and help out in class, providing the child with additional guidance. Also, our allied educators for learning and behavioral support also step in and conduct therapy sessions, as well as to connect the students or their families to relevant agencies which can benefit the child too. Okay, so in March and July, we have actually organized 2 sessions of the study skills and positive mindset workshop. So this workshop mainly aims to equip the students with strategies for time and stress management, so as to help them improve in their daily learning, their revision, and then also to equip them with the necessary examination skills so that they are prepared for the upcoming exam. So this workshop was actually quite well received by the students because they felt that they have learned useful tips to help them cope with their schoolwork and stress level. So I'm going to share some highlights from the workshop, which I find it useful, and I hope you find it useful too, and you can use it to engage your child and motivate them too. So first of all, the students were taught to plan this power zone. This one power zone actually consists of 30 to 40 minutes blocks of 100% concentration, after which the students will reward themselves with a 15 to 20 minutes break. So it's recommended to have 2 to 4 power zones during normal school days and 5 to 8 power zones nearer to exam. So maybe this is just only a guideline. It will all depend on the child's schedule for the day. But I think probably 2 or 3 power zones per school day should be easily achievable. All right, so we also need to bear in mind that during the block of 1 power zone, the child can do self-study, revision, or this even includes homework. However, tuition time is not considered as power zone time in this case. The child should actually be fully focused on their own learning during this time frame. Okay, so students also learn about the various learning styles during the workshop. It was quite engaging because they actually took a quiz in the worksheet that was given to them. And many of them discovered their learning styles, which can be just either 1 or 2 or a combination of the all 3, which are auditory, the visual, and the kinesthetic. Okay, so after they learned about learning styles, there were some study techniques that were provided to them to help them apply to the different learning styles. Of course, we know that one size does not fit all, so we can try out different study techniques. For example, the instructor actually recommended for visual and kinesthetic learners to make study cards, and some of the classmates in the class actually feel that yes, that they do that. All right, and for auditory learners, they might feel that quizzing themselves is a very good way to learn, and the use of colors to highlight the main point and the sub points to help them see more clearly, differentiate the question properly. And then I think for the last study technique, which is very important, I think this is applicable to all the subjects, which is to redo questions that they have got it wrong. Because when you do corrections, then you will understand where you have gone wrong and you can prevent the mistake again. All right, so to end off and conclude what they have done for the workshop, students actually had to design their own action plan where they set their own goals, identify their area of weaknesses, and how they are going to overcome it. So we hope that, parents, you can get your child to take out this action plan and share it with you. And then, you can look through with them and motivate them together and then work towards success or work towards the target grade for their PSLE. That would be very useful to them too. All right, next. Another form of very important support that I feel personally as a form teacher, I feel that it's the daily form teacher interaction time. So for every morning, about 15 minutes, we do daily check-in with the pupils. So we check in on their physical and mental well-being, like we ask them, how are you feeling today? Anybody is not feeling well? And then we also have conversations with them. So during this 15 minutes time, we can even share useful tips with them. Some of the things that we have shared with them include cultivating the growth mindset, the new PSLE scoring system, the information about DSA, how to select secondary school, and of course, our updates of the safe management issues and the COVID-19 situation. So as a form teacher, I find this form teacher interaction time very effective component of providing support to our students. So this is a time for us to have conversation with them, to hear from them, to interact with them. So if there are any issues, that they bring out, we can actually address them as soon as possible, providing them, with the basic support that they need from us. Okay, so as we are nearing the PSLE, so the stress level, can be sometimes be overwhelming for the students, when we check in with the students daily. So they may get stressed out either by the higher expectations or the schoolwork. They feel that it's a heavy workload. So we share with them motivational quotes, to build up their positive mindset, to spur them on, to motivate them to overcome the obstacles in front and work towards their goal. So I think this is a timely reminder for some of them, because especially in times when they feel tired and they want to give up. So this kind of the quote might come into to their eyes, their ears, and then give them a good reminder. Hey, don't give up. The teachers are here for you. You can work towards your goal. All right. So these are some quotes that we share to motivate the students. Yeah. So next, I will pass on the time to Miss Tree, our school counselor, who will be speaking more about the stress management.
A very warm welcome to all parents. As some of you may already know, I'm Miss Shri, the school counselor of Guanyang Primary School. Today, I will be taking you through some of these slides to share the recommendations and strategies to support our children to cope better with stress. To begin with, let's take a look at what's stress all about. The children may experience stress when they are confronted with a difficult situation or challenge in their life. When they are constantly worried or thinking about this, it can cause lots of pressure, and that is when they feel stressed. Stress can actually affect the kids both physically and emotionally. These are some of the common symptoms of stress experienced by children. Some of the red flags that you need to look out for are like changes in appetite, changes in sleeping patterns, feeling lethargic all the time, experiencing somatic symptoms, and constant worrying. Having negative thoughts and even having negative thoughts about themselves. You may also notice some behavioral symptoms such as emotional outbursts and defiance. The kids can also experience anxiety attack by having chest pain and breathlessness. If you do notice these symptoms in your children, let your kids know that you have observed these changes in them and encourage them to express their feelings or worries to you. Even if they're not willing to open up to you yet, you can tell them that you will be available when they are ready to speak to you. It is important to listen to them non-judgmentally when they are ready to speak to you. I will also strongly encourage you to contact the form teachers or myself so that we can continue to keep a lookout for these kids in school and try to engage them, especially when these symptoms are presented is a sudden change and has persisted across a long period of time, and it has affected the child's daily life functioning in terms of academic, relationship with parents, teachers, and friends. In this way, we can actually work in a partnership and provide the necessary support for the child. Likewise, we will also keep you in the loop if we notice any changes in the kids. This is a common question that parents usually ask me. Is stress good or bad for kids? Well, I would say sometimes stress can be good too. For example, when the kids are worried about their upcoming year-end examinations, right? They may want to start preparing for their examination by creating a timetable or starting their revision early. With proper planning, they will not feel as stressed and they will actually feel more confident when facing their actual examination. Certain level of stress may even motivate them to focus on their task better and allows them to complete their task more effectively. Well, what about bad stress? Okay, when we have a level of stress that's too much for the kids to handle, it becomes a bad stress. For example, if they have not been paying attention during classes and they realize that they do not have sufficient time to prepare for their upcoming examination, while parents and teachers have been reminding them constantly to start revising, the children realize that they do not understand most of their content when they finally start their revision. All of this can really add to their stress. Bad stress can also be due to unrealistic expectations from parties such as themselves. All right, these are some recommendations that I would like to share with you to help your kids cope with exam stress. You can encourage your kids to go through past year exam papers, class worksheets, or class exams and try them out several times, especially if they have gotten it wrong before, like what Chair shared earlier. They are helpful because it allows the children to make an assessment to determine whether they are ready for the actual examination. It also allows them to familiarize themselves with the exam format. Discuss with your kids if they need to design a study plan, especially if they know that they have several exams to sit for. It's advisable for them to maintain a revision timetable. It is also important for the kids to have at least 8 to 9 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Advise your kids to remove themselves from any form of screen light at least 1 hour before bedtime. As some of you may already know, it has been researched that light from such devices such as computer and mobile phone, especially when used in evenings, can actually change the brain's sleeping rhythms. So the brain will actually read the screen light as daytime, and the kids may find it difficult to fall asleep. It is also important for our kids to have regular meals because it helps them to be attentive in class and pay attention to their teacher. If they have not been paying attention to the teacher in class, they can start to feel stressed when they start their revision because they realize that they do not understand a lot of concepts. And if the kids are struggling to understand certain concepts, let them know that it's perfectly normal and okay to seek help from their peers, tuition teachers, and parents. After completing each exam, parents can actually remind the kids to not discuss the questions with their friends. When they realize that their answers is actually different from their friends, it can cause them unnecessary anxiety and they may not be able to focus in subsequent papers. And most importantly, tell them not to spend dwelling on the exam that they have already set for and to focus on the subsequent ones for the same reason. Ask them to give themselves a pat on their shoulder for completing each exam successfully. Give them a thumbs up when they come back home after each paper. On the day of exam, ensure that the kids have good uninterrupted. On the day before exam, ensure that the kids have good uninterrupted 8 to 9 hours of sleep so that they can actually wake up early on the day of exam and arrive to school on time. This allows them to calm down and look through the notes. Rushing to school can actually create a lot of unnecessary anxiety, fast heartbeat, and stress. Even when they are already in the examination room, they can actually take some time to calm down. Yeah. And if they continue to feel anxious, they can actually try some of the strategies that we have taught them in school. So I will use this opportunity now to share some of the strategies that I have actually covered with them. And you can also practice it with your kids at home. This is an example of the positive card that was done by one of our P6 students. The students can refer to this positive card during their revision or before examination as a form of motivation. So far, I've done this with the P6 Loyalty and P6 Courage kids, and I'll be covering the other two classes next week. In my experience, I have noticed that our kids tend to have negative automatic thoughts, and they have to be guided to alter the negative thoughts to positive ones. For example, when a kid tells me that the subject is very hard, I get them to reframe it into something positive. These are some of the examples of the positive self-talk that my kids have come up with. When the kids think positively, they will feel good and confident about themselves. Parents can encourage the kids to change the negative thoughts to positive ones too. Over time, their mind will begin to focus on the good ones rather than the bad ones. This is something that we need to cultivate in our young kids now so that they can become resilient young adults later. And I would also want to mention that positive thinking leads to positive outcomes. One of the exercises that I have actually taught the kids during the stress management talk is called the hand breathing exercise, which they can actually practice whenever they are feeling stressed or overwhelmed. It's a very simple exercise that they can practice at home with you. So, and this is something that they need to practice more than once in order for them to experience the effectiveness of it. So it goes like this. They have to actually stretch out their hand like a star, and you can get them to, I usually get them to choose their favorite color pen or highlighter and trace them along their fingers, sliding up and down. So when they breathe in, it goes up, and when it goes down, they breathe out. I have advised the kids to practice this strategy on their table or on their lap so that it does not attract unnecessary attention. They can do this before examination or under any situation that creates difficult feelings. And with that, I've come to the end of my part. I'd like to thank you for your kind attention. Please feel free to contact me if you'd like to consult me for any of the cases. And I wish you a good weekend.
Okay, I hope parents, you found the session useful, and you have some useful handles as well as tips on how to motivate and support your child for this final leg. So at this point, perhaps I could just invite you to type in any questions in the Q&A function if you do have any. We have also, there was an earlier question about the common last topic that will not be tested for the mathematics and science paper. So we have already answered that. So you might like to refer to the answered segment in the Q&A function as well. Or if there are any parents that would like to ask your question live, you can just click on the raise hand function and we will attend to you. We have a question over here about whether when they sit the exams, do they go home once the paper is finished? So maybe I can invite our year head to answer the question.
Hi, thank you for the question. Yes, on the days when the students sit for their PSLE paper, they do go home at the end of the paper, right? So there is a certain duration, and once the exam paper is completed, or rather when the exam has ended for the day, the students will be dismissed, and then they go home and they prepare for the next paper. Okay, maybe I can just add on that on the days where there are higher mother tongue papers, students who do not take higher mother tongue papers, they do not have to come to school. So it is a free day for the student. Yes, certainly, I think we can take a look at the prelim result, and it could be a useful indicator in shortlisting secondary schools.
So just to add on to the point that I think Ms. Au mentioned earlier, it's a good indicator. And when we set the prelim paper, we peg it as much as possible to the PSLE standards. All right, so rest assured, so we do also encourage our students to try their best in their prelim exams and use that as a gauge on how they have, whether they have progressed since the mid-year as well. Are there any other questions that the parents you might have?
All right, I'd like to take the question on the, whether the whole textbook on interaction, is an interaction. There are actually different interaction also, then talk about physical science as well. But it's interaction within the environment. That's the last topic for both the standard and foundation. They are not included. So if you have any questions, you can ask children to refer to that. But nonetheless, the teachers will guide them and they will tell them that actually it's not being covered. These topics will be covered after their PSLE. And it's not included in exams or the PSLE. Okay, thank you.
Well, perhaps I can address the question pertaining to from now until then, it seems there's a lot of homework. Actually, the school has in place a homework policy, and one of the guidelines the teachers do follow would be on the day when the student has afternoon lesson in that particular subject, there will be no homework assigned for that subject. So for example, on Monday, there are afternoon lessons for both English and science. So it means that on Monday, English and science teachers would not assign homework for that day. At the same time, we're also very mindful of students' mental well-being. So we do check in with the students whether they are able to cope with the homework. So typically we'll ask them, so what is the homework you have been assigned today so far? And based on what they have already been given, the teachers do exercise their judgment and discretion as to how much work we will assign for the students. So we are on our end managing the amount of homework that we are assigning the students. But if parents do have any concern, do let the subject teachers know or do let the form teachers know. Yep, thank you.
All right, just like to clarify and add on to the point about the point about homework and students and whether they are on their own. So I'd just like to reassure parents that we do have in place the form teacher interaction time, where the teachers will actually have some support for the students. All right. So I think students should be able to manage their work. And I think we do check in very regularly with them during this period of time. Right? But we do encourage the students, if they do have any, if they're really stressed, they can always approach their form teachers or the school counselor as well.
Okay, there is a question regarding the, okay, so this is the question. If the indicative score of a secondary school is 13, and there's student A scoring 13 and placing the school as the first choice, versus student B who scored 11 and places the school as second choice, will student A have priority? So again, just to reiterate, the PSLE score will be the first criterion. So the student with the better score should be posted to the school first. So thereafter, student, so the PSLE score is the first criterion. Thereafter, we will have the 3 tiebreakers. First of which is the citizenship, followed by choice order of schools, and then finally computerized balloting.
At this point of time, maybe I'll just add on to Ms. Au's response as well. So for indicative score, it's actually usually a range. All right, so we're talking about a range of, for example, it could be 10 to 14, for example, for this school, for the express course. All right, so of course, if it falls within the range, the student will definitely be accepted to the school. The tiebreaker only comes in when the 2 students are having the same score. So if I have 2 students with 13 and student A with 13 and student B with 13, then like what Ms. Au mentioned earlier, the tiebreaker conditions comes in. But other than that, if your child PSLE score is within the indicative score range, all right, he or she should be able to get a place in the school. All right. Do we have any other questions that the parents might have? But at this point, I really do encourage parents to go really into to visit the virtual open houses of the various secondary schools to help you make a more informed decision, and do have their conversations with our students. As I interacted with some of the students last week, there's a group of students who are very clear on the schools that they want to go to, and they are very focused on that. But on the other hand, we also do have some students who are still very unsure on the schools that they want to apply for. All right. So I think our communication to them and what we have been telling them so far is that you must have a school in mind. All right. So once you have the school in mind, you can target your PSLE score to be within the indicative score range, and use that as a target, all right, so that you can motivate yourself to work harder towards that target. So that's something that we have been trying to educate our students in as well. All right. Any last questions from the parents? If there are no further questions, if you do have any, of course, feel free to approach any of the form teachers at any point of time. But if there are no questions, perhaps I'd like to invite parents just to complete a very simple feedback form so that we can improve this session for further the subsequent cohorts as well. All right. So if I can just invite parents to just scan the QR code to just complete a simple feedback form. Right. If not, I think that is all we have for today. All right. And again, I think at this point of time, I just wish everyone good health and do stay safe. All right. Back end in schools, we do have our safe management measures. All right, to protect your children in our fight against COVID as well. All right. So thank you very much, parents, for taking the time this afternoon to attend this session.